Thank you very much for being here, especially to FINA and Pero for arranging all this. I will give you a short explanation about how we work in the Netherlands, and it fits well with the story of Marcel, which he did before. And I will take you through the history of our lab and how we build it up, because I think it's very important to know that when you start an innovation, it doesn't have to start by flying to the moon. You can also start with little steps in order to create an environment where performance enhancement is realized. I will tell you a little bit about myself, because I see all these famous people on the board. Actually, I was a first I started as a swimmer in Eindhoven, and I tried to be a top-level swimmer. I trained 20 hours per week, but unfortunately, I had no talent. I'm 1.80 m, I've suicide 42, and I'm mean intelligent, so it's impossible for me to be a world-class athlete. Then I started to be a coach, and I did everything I could to be the world-class coach I could be. But actually, I had no talent enough. So I did that for 7 years, and we had a famous coach in the Netherlands, Jacco Verhaar. He was a friend of mine. He asked me to be his assistant, but I was not only not a good coach, I was also a little bit stupid, because I told him, I want to be equal to you or above you, otherwise I don't work with you. So I didn't become the assistant coach because I was a little bit ignorant. Then I thought maybe I can be a sports teacher. So I went to the University of Physical Education and Sports and tried to be a teacher in school, but that didn't work out because my only real love for sport was for swimming. So then I went to the University of Human Movement Sciences, but actually I won a prize, but I'm not a human movement scientist. So everything didn't work out well. And then fortunately somebody asked me to become the manager of the Inner Sports Lab, and I can assure you, if you do nothing well, become a manager, then you can still be effective. A little bit about the Inner Sports Lab. The Inner Sports Lab is placed in Eindhoven, and I'm very happy with that because I can explain you a little bit about Eindhoven itself. Eindhoven is the city of Philips, the city of light. Maybe you know that. Maybe you know the brand Philips. Philips is next to us. It's about 1.5 kilometers from the swimming pool, and our national swimming center is the Tongenreep. It's the pool where the European Championships are done in long course and short course, and it's very close to the high-tech campus. That's the smartest square kilometer of the world. There work about 80 people, 80 nationalities, 8,000 people who create about half of the IP in the Netherlands. So half of all the intellectual property in the Netherlands is made 1.5 kilometers from the swimming pool. Besides that, Eindhoven contains a technical university, a big research center, and besides that, we have the University of Physical Education and Sports in Eindhoven. So if you're a manager in that place and you can't realize innovation, then you're a very bad manager. So I'm lucky to be there. What we created is this, and unfortunately our country contains only 17 million people. It's a very dense country with a lot of human beings there, but 17 million people is a city in China. And we have to compete with the Chinese, the Brazilians, the Americans, the big countries where there live 380 million people, for example, or 1 billion people. And the chance that you find a real talented person in such a country is, of course, much bigger than in the Netherlands. So we have not so much talents, and we have to push everything we know and can in these people in order to make them to enhance their performance so much that they can win a medal. So it's very difficult to get out of a group of 10 people a winner. So I have to congratulate our coaches because they do a hell of a job. We are not the ones who do it, the swimmers do it, but these coaches are really outstanding. What we did in order to compete with the rest of the world is actually quite simple. They asked me to buy a coffee machine to create a place where people can meet each other. And the astonishing thing about our country is that it's only 300 kilometers to go from one side of the country to the other side of the country. So that's actually nothing. In 2 hours you can drive almost to the other side of the Netherlands. From Amsterdam to Eindhoven is 1 hour and 15 minutes in the morning. So It's pretty astonishing that the best university of physical education of human movement science is based in Amsterdam. And there worked a person, it's called Huub Toussaint. Maybe you know that name. If you are a little bit a scientist, you know that name. He wrote 72 articles about swimming. Besides that, we had Marcel Wouda and Jacco Verharen as famous coaches working in Eindhoven. So they lived 1 hour and 15 minutes separated from each other. And the astonishing thing was that they never talked to each other. So the first thing I did when I came in the Inner Sports Lab is bring these two people together and talk to each other. And they never did. Besides that, the business around swimming is very small. Of course, we have the big brands, Speedo, Arena, Adidas, which invest, and the pool builders. But actually, there's not so much innovation around our sports. So we thought, if we bring 3 parties together, namely the knowledge party, the universities, the best people we have in the Netherlands, together with the best coaches, together with the best companies, then we can all win. And that looks simple. Every country in the world can do that, because in Africa they have universities, in United States they have universities. But it's quite difficult to make researchers work together with the practice. Because a researcher is based on open innovation, because he does research and he wants to show it to the rest of the world immediately. And actually a coach is sometimes working in secret. The man before asked, tell me your secret. But coaches work a little bit in silence and don't want to tell everybody what they do. So it's difficult to let a scientist work with a coach. Besides that, companies are interested in when they go to the market. So they make problems when you say, you have to keep this innovation only for our country, because the rest of the world can buy it after the Olympics. And then he says, I have to release this new innovation just before the Olympics, because then everybody in the world will buy it. So that's pretty difficult to bring these parties together. But fortunately, we live in a country that we always have to share. The Netherlands is so small that we have to cooperate with big countries, and we are brought up with the fact that we have to work with others in order to be successful ourselves. So that makes it more easy. I will show you a video, and I know it's not nice to take the credits from somebody else, because actually Jacco Verharen did this job. But I want to show you a little bit what the outcome was from one of our innovations.
1 and 2 are there from the 100. We've come up with different styles in terms of just getting themselves ready, and they're about to go now in the women's 50 freestyle final. The favourite goes from lane 4. Away, can she do the big double? Cromwell with Jojo gets a pretty good start. Lane 8 flew out. Al Shamar in the yellow cap. They're coming up to halfway. Cromwell with Jojo's there with Veldhouse and also Al Shamar. Lane 6 going well, Stefan. Cromwell with Jojo's in a good spot, I reckon. She's on world record pace. I think she's got them. Veldhouse is coming at her. It could be a Dutch Quinella. Cromwell with Jojo's going to do the B double. She does. Herasiminia does it again and gets...
I'm still a little bit proud when I look at that, and it's pretty strange actually, because she does it, but I was proud that she was first. What we saw in this video is that we worked 2 years on only her start performance. In the Inner Sports Lab, we did everything we could to improve the start of Ranomi. And actually what you saw is in 15 meters, she was 4/10 of a second faster than Herasiminia, who got out second. And at the end of the race, she was only 2/10 before Herasiminia. So on 15 meters, she had gained 4/10 of a second ahead on Herasiminia, and at the end, she was only 2/10 of a second faster. So if she wouldn't have done that start, she would have a silver medal, actually. I want to show you later how that happened. But before I do that, I want to show you this, because it shows you a little bit why we need innovation.
We travel around the world, and I never see this kind of, I don't know, technical devices.
You need something scientific, some from science, some like that can give you the proof that you are working the right way and not in the worst.
This video is too long to show totally, but what it shows is actually 2 important things. The swimmer, in this case, Yevgen Korotishkin, was very impressed about what we did. And besides that, the coach said an important question. I need something scientific, you know, I need something that can give me the proof that I'm working in the right way. I think that's a major thing, what he says there, and I'm not sure that everybody in the world would ask the same question. In the Netherlands, I'm in the lucky position that Marcel, in this case, is very open to find constantly evaluation of his own work in order to improve for the next day. So he is actually, that's what you asked, what's your secret? I think his secret is that he wants to improve every day, and he's open to listen to people he trusts in order to change his behavior the next day. That's one of the things I saw in Jacco, I see it in Marcel, and I see it also in our technical director. People who are talented listen to others and use what they need. Then I want to show you which things we have in our lab, just to get a little bit an idea. Hey. Something goes wrong with the video. I'll try once more. If not, I go to the next one. Yes. Okay. That's the outcome of a couple of years' work. I will take you now to the history of our lab in order to show you what we did. And I will also show you what the last innovations are. And then I will tell you the lessons learned. And actually, I will also answer your question, how we can create these things without having money, because we are not rich. We have 1.6 million euro to spend, I think, around that the technical director is there, but around that amount of money. It's not so much. We cannot compete in money with other countries. We cannot compete in number of citizens in our country, so we have to do it different. I will show you now, and it's astonishing, because what you see here is a video of 2007, where these are not spectators, these are journalists. And what we did actually is put a camera in the wall, a cable on it, connected it with a computer, and 50 people were watching our new innovation. Now, if that's innovation, then everybody in the world is doing innovation, because we all have a smartphone. And my father was astonished, because he told me, I captured you already when you were 7 years old in 1980, when you were swimming in the sea. What's that? But actually, sports didn't look at the possibilities of video analysis at all. It took far too long before they started using that. And that's astonishing. I can show you now. This was the first thing I did in 2007 when I came. Make a video of a swimmer. And it's to laugh about. But ask yourself the question, in your country, in your region, if every swimming pool contains cameras, if every soccer field contains cameras, it doesn't. My son is doing karate now, and the guy gives him an example, and then later he tells him what he did wrong. I teach 12 years in the university. The first thing we learned, our students, was that the visual feedback is about the most important feedback you can give, then how is possible that not every swimmer has an automated feedback system to see his own performance every day? It's not expensive. It's 1,000 euro and a cable. Every country in the world who's in this place can pay that. But they don't have it. And for me, that's pretty astonishing. Then the next step. What can you do with such a program? You can buy simple software. Not simple software, but cheap. This is Dartfish. I did in 2007 with Pieter van der Hogeband, by hand. I just followed his line. I draw a line, and I measured in the screen, and I can tell you, I did wrong, but it helped. Because I couldn't measure the exact distances, but I could measure differences in distances. This program costs 600 euro. You can use it every day. A camera and this program, and you can start your own innovation today. But we don't do that, because it seems too difficult to implement it in training. Our coaches did. And because they started working with this, they came up with new questions. So they said, can that be more easy? I want to do it in an easy way. It takes too much time in this way, and I want to have the feedback faster. That was the question. It was Jacco Verhaeren. He said, I'm not going to work like that anymore, Roald, because I was working all Saturday and Sunday to do the analysis, and then 1 week later we gave feedback. And he said, that doesn't work. I want it today. When I do the test, I want to do it today. Then we said, we want to follow a swimmer across the whole lane. This is actually a bad swimmer. It's me. What you see here, it looks as if a car is running with the swimmer, and it follows the swimmer across the whole line. And we developed this together with Dartfish and Philips. In 2006 they started, in 2007 they delivered. And I want to show you this video because this program costed 250,000 euro. And the astonishing thing is that we never used the software. And I tell you why. Because the company came in, Philips in this case, and they said, what do you need? And then the coach said, famous coaches can say what they want. So Jacco said, I want to follow the swimmer across the whole lane. I want to be able to see him swimming 15 and 100 and 200, and I want to follow. So the guy from the company wrote down, he wants to follow the swimmer across the whole lane. He left, and he started programming 1 year, and he came back, and he delivered this program. And it seems astonishing, doesn't it? Because these are fixed cameras, 11 fixed cameras, and it worked. They did software automatically, they put them together. But this thing was that the camera looked at the body color. And you can imagine if you put 2 swimmers in the water, then it takes the head of one swimmer and the feet of the other one, because it doesn't know where the swimmer is. So that means in practice that Jacco had to say to Pieter van der Hogeband, yeah, you sit on the bench because we're now going to capture Marleen Veldhuis. And the other top athletes have to sit and wait because only one swimmer could be captured. You can imagine why you need a place where these developers meet this coach and see how he works. Because no coach in the world, none of you is going to say to the swimmers, sit on the bench, I'm now going to capture one. So we never used the system. 250,000 euro thrown away. Later we started using these same cameras, and we came up with another idea, and it was this. It was a fully automated system, and we asked TNO, the best research company in the Netherlands, to help us out and do automated tracking of athletes, because Jacco wanted that we could follow a swimmer who wore a suit with lights that had to be followed with an algorithm automatically, and then automatically the data would come up. And we defined about 60 things to measure. And they promised us we will do that all totally automatically. So they would give us the captures, they would give us the numbers, and you could use these numbers when you clicked on them to jump to a place. For example, a landing of the swimmer, and then automatically you could see that. So you got data, video, and didactics in one. Now that was heaven. We thought this is it. If this works, they worked on it a year. Then we evaluated by hand. From 60 things they promised to be able to measure, we could do only 8. And from these 8, only 4 were good, but you didn't know which 4. That means that you actually measure nothing. So fortunately, I started in those days to work with universities. And Marcel remembers the first day that the famous biomechanic, Sander Schreven, he's not here, but he's absolutely a super talent. He worked in a laboratory, and he was still a student. He was a master student. And I was doing my things and measuring, and he said, sir, he called me sir in the beginning, sir, what are you doing? I said, yeah, I'm measuring. He said, you're doing it wrong. That's not the right way. You don't measure well. And then I started to ask to know what he did. And he told me, my mean grade is 9.1, and I have 8 tenths on my end list of human movement sciences. So he was the best student of the last decade of the university, and besides that, he could program. So I said to him, I give you 10 euro per hour if you make me a program, 10 euro. And he created this. And don't look at the form, how it looks, but look what it does. He said, we should make it more simple. And in the beginning, it went like this. Later, you will see what's the next step. I wanted, or Marcel wanted, to be able to measure about 15 important things in starts. So what we did is just made a video, and we put those videos in a program. And we didn't put a total suit on, but only one swimming trunk with a LED light on it. And we calibrated this field. So what you could do is click on that light and follow that light in time. So that makes possible that you know angles, speed, distance. All these things can be measured. I will show you later which. But what you see is that we created something very difficult and later made it much easier, much more simple. What Marcel said, it has to be simple. No suits, which takes 15 minutes to put on, and a lot of lights. One light, one trunk, calibrated field, and measure in a video screen. This software can be made by every programmer in the world who's in Informatica, when he's in his first year. So it's very simple. But what's behind it is that we started to collect data. We just measured. We didn't know what it meant, but we started measuring every day. And in the meanwhile, I created that we had 40 students, 40, who work in our laboratory from all the universities of the Netherlands. And I said to them, you have to work 4 days on your own project, and 1 day a week you have to work like a slave for us to give the numbers to the coaches. That's your major job, to help these coaches. And they are doing now the measurements by hand. And why I tell this is because there are more countries who have no money. And if you have to measure one start, it takes you 10 minutes. And every week we do 12 starts per swimmer. We analyze. So that's 12 times 15 minutes per swimmer times the swimmers you have. It's an awful lot of time for starts, but we also do finishes and turns and etc. So we need these students, this organization, in order to be able to measure. If the boy, Sander, who developed this, had to do it himself, we could only do Femke or Ranomi, and we couldn't do all the rest. So what I created is actually a learning community around sports who help us out to do the measurements, and that everybody can do, because in every country they have universities and students which have to do an internship, and you put them in the same place, and actually they will be happy to work with you because you are the best of your country. You have the best swimmers, the best athletes, the best coach. Working with these students, they are very impressed that they can be there. So we ask only for the best, and they have to work hard. Then the moment came that we started using this program, but in the moment before, we had to measure, and it all went into Excel. You know Excel, no? The program. But we got every measurement one sheet. So at the end of the year, we had about 300 sheets for all different people, and we couldn't find it anymore. So I asked the same Sander, I said, if I give you 15 euro per hour, can you do a database for me? It's a true story, yeah? And he accepted it. He couldn't do databases yet, but he looked online, that's also true, and in 2 weeks he was able to make a database. Now the database contains about several thousand start analysis, several thousand turn analysis from famous athletes all over the world, because they come to our center, And we measure also the Dutch team always. Now it came, because we could do the measurements, and I will show you a short video of how it goes, because this is how it goes now. We measure, for example, and now I will stop it. What we measure is, when the light goes here, you know that it's time 0, because that's the moment that you hear the signal. Then we measure how long does it take to come from the block, actually the block time. Then we measure in which angle does the swimmer leave the block, and we do that very simple. We just click on the hip where the light is and on the point of the block, and then you know this angle. We didn't know what it meant, but we measured it. Then we measure speed in the air. In which angle does this swimmer come into the water? How deep does he go? Where does he start with the butterfly kick? What's the speed and time on 5 meters? What's the speed and time on 10 meters? What's the speed and time on 50 meters? And on which place does he resurface? These information we just captured constantly. And fortunately, our coaches were not ignorant, because they said, what can you get out of it now? And I can tell you, in the beginning, we couldn't get anything out of it, because first you have to collect data to know the meaning of the data. They waited, and now we know an awful lot about starts and turns, because we do this constantly. I will show you now what we did afterwards, because it's very nice to collect data. When you collect all this enormous data stream, big data, we can call it. But if I put that on his plate and say to him, here's the data, Marcel will say, yeah, what do I do with this data? He wants information. He wants useful information in order to correct the behavior of the swimmer, in order to enhance performance. And our performance is time and speed. There's nothing interesting but the time on 10 meters, that's the start. After that, we start swimming. And we want to know the speed and time of swimming. Then we want to know the turn. What time does it take to turn? But it's always about speed and time, so actually it's simple. Soccer playing is much more difficult than volleyball, because you have also an opponent who can do something, and you have to react, and you have the tactics. We don't have so much tactics. Yeah, one tactic, how do you divide the race? But on the other hand, it's about technique and how you propulse yourself forward. So what we did, after we collect data, we did something very useful. Sander did actually, he should have stand here. He's much smarter than me, I can tell you. But what you see here is that Ranomi dives from the block, and this line we created is her speed line, or her line of performance. This is the line she follows with the hip when she performed her best start ever. Besides that, we have this yellow line, and it resembles this hip mark with the speed. So actually she did now a worse start than before. Then we do on these data, we do statistics, and we find, for example, the correlation between the angle of leaving the block, and that's a true story. 1 degree difference of the angle of leaving the block is 1/10 of a second difference in time on 10 meters. For Ranomi Kromowidjojo, 1/10. And 1/10 is a big difference in swimming. So what we did is we said to her, together with the coach, you have to change that angle. Then we look every day at the outcome with an automatic feedback system. And we can see as coaches immediately, what do I see for change in the path she follows, and what does it mean for the speed? Because when she beats this line, she did a personal best. And we analyze always. So that helps us a lot actually to see better and to see better the result. Another thing, you see there above, 1.78. That's the time on 5 meters. She does now much faster, but this was 1.78. And you get that 3 seconds after you performed your start. So you read the start, you capture him, you put it in the program, immediately you get the time, you see the line, your best performance, and the speed of your hip. And actually this time is very important, because I know there are coaches here who measure with a stopwatch. They stand there at the 50-meter pole. Sometimes they say, take your marks, and then they dive, and then they measure the 15-meter time. Now, sometimes they stand close to the swimmer to say on your marks, and sometimes they are lazy, they are 50 meters away from the swimmer. Actually, the sound takes already longer. And then the second thing is they measure, and it's 2/10 of a second that you measure wrong. And the differences made in a start are smaller than 2/10 of a second. So actually you're measuring nothing. You're bullshitting the thing. So what we do is we measure in 2/100ths of a second exact the time, and then we can constantly give the swimmer feedback because we don't have to perform. Marcel doesn't have to perform. Femke has to perform. She does the dive. And she has her own sensors, her eyes, her feeling, that's important, and her hearing. So actually these natural senses have to be used. And what we see now is that when we give that feedback time, the swimmer starts himself seeing, by looking at the screen, what he did, he felt, and you have to give that feedback within 30 seconds after doing a start. I tell you a little story about this program, because what you see is that the light was filmed. But we always start the film 5 seconds before the light runs. So afterwards, we always had to look for that light. The innovation of Marcel was, he said, I don't want to wait for that light constantly because you constantly have to search and it takes time. Sander developed that automatically the camera sees the light and cuts the video off at the light. We don't have to search anymore. It takes us 10 seconds less to give the feedback. But if you only have 30 seconds to give your feedback in order to have the feeling still in the body what you did, then you need to have a system which is really fast. Otherwise it doesn't help. It doesn't help to say 2 minutes after doing the start, yeah, the start you performed 2 minutes ago did that and that. That doesn't help you anything. So we need fast feedback. I will show you 2 more systems, but I will do fast because I want to tell other stories than this. We also have this MED system. It's called measuring active drag. Swimmers swim across, let's say, a long rod. Every rod contains a pad, and this rod is connected to a force meter. So you can push against these pads in order to measure your force. And as you probably know, if you go in the same speed, the force you deliver is actually totally equal to the resistance. So you can measure if one suit, for example, is better than another suit with this. You can put Adidas suit, Nike suit, Speedo suit, and search for a swimmer which suit gives him the least resistance. Because when they go with the same speed and you need less push force with Speedo, then that suit's better for this particular swimmer. What I want to tell you is that there is really an interaction between the body and the suit. So it can be interesting to measure that. Besides that, I showed you this video, and what you also see, there is no best start. This is the line of Ranomi, and this is the line of Henkelien Schreuder. World record holder she was on short course on the medley, 100 meter, and she is world record holder on the 50 freestyle. This is 135 deep, and this is 90 centimeters. This is the best line of Henkelien, and this is the best line of Ranomi. And if Henkelien does that, she goes slower, and if Ranomi does that, she also goes slower. So we work with abnormal people. Marcel is totally abnormal. You can't swim 4:05 on 400 medley if you train 20 hours a week and you're like me. And you can't swim 24:03 on 50 freestyle in a long course if you are a regular person. We work with abnormal people, and actually often the coaches are also abnormal talented. So these abnormal people, you need to do research on one person. Otherwise it would be comparing Einstein with the rest of the world in physics. Yeah, that measurement tool doesn't measure how smart he is. So we need tools for these abnormal people to give them the right advice. So that's not really research. We're always fighting with the real researchers because they say we need a big group and we need the mean and then we need the curve and then we can say if it's significant or not significant. It will never be significant with athletes because you have not enough subjects. Then this. What we also do is towing people through the water, and they hold a force meter. And we can tow them from 1 meter per second till 5 meters per second. We can measure, of course, the passive drag of a suit, but a more interesting thing is we also wanted to know, when do you have to start with your butterfly kick, for example, after your turn? Or when do you have to start your butterfly kick after a start? And what I was taught when I did my course as a coach, they told me you have to start kicking when you have the speed, you can also swim. And I told that actually in reality to the coach who's now coaching Granomi. So I heard it from somebody and I told it to the next coach, and the next coach is telling to the swimmer. What we said to swimmers, that they have to wait when they have the speed, they can swim after a turn, that's not true. We measured that. Actually, after a turn, you have to start kicking immediately. And with a start, you have to wait a little, but when you are in a speed, a half meter per second faster than the speed you can swim, you should already start with your butterfly kick. But you need to measure that. And you need to know at which point that is, because your eyes for a swimmer will fool him. Actually, the glasses can already fool him. So he doesn't know where he has to start. So you have to teach and measure that. Then I want to show you a little bit about how we work now, because it's very nice to have all these tools, but the most important thing we are working on is that we make it more efficient. Because when I use Sander, the smartest I have, to do a stupid job, I can better make a program that somebody else who's not so smart can do the job, and that Sander can make the next step. Otherwise, he's occupied with simple jobs. And a lot of people do that, because I see professors working to do analysis, which a monkey almost can do. And that's not smart. What I would do is to say, make systems which can do the work by themselves. For example, like this. So we display a camera system. We give a start signal. We can do that also automatically. We have the voice of Marcel and of the other coach. Then it connects with the light there. And then automatically the movie returns on the video screen with no coach involved, nothing. We don't have to do anything. And then we start to discuss. In this case, me, the coach, and the scientist, the very smart scientist. What I do is to translate sometimes things I think that can help. The coach takes always this decision, so Marcel is the boss in the pool. We only help, the three of us, to give the proper information to Marcel. And of course, this guy, this Sander, is the smartest biomechanics we have. So he gives advices, but we translate that into practice. In this case, it's to Jasper, it's a young athlete. Yeah, so that's it. That's actually what it started with, was just capturing, doing it by hand, then a little bit more automatic, and now fully automatic. They can train actually themselves. And it's nice, because our technical director is here, and he asked me the question, Roald, what do you do with this data? And he said, I want an outcome that people do it better, more often. Because it's very nice to have a very good personal best, but if you do the rest of the year always bad, yeah, what are you doing? You want to have a big chance that they do at the right moment the right things. So we also saw that, for example, when we give the proper feedback in time, that the swimmer knows better when he did well, he feels it better, and he can do more often close to his personal best, because he's better in that. He doesn't make big mistakes anymore. That's important. Then, what's the future? Because I think Marcel is right. If we do what we did, we get what we got. And the astonishing thing is that world records holders are people who actually set the new standard. And what is also astonishing, if somebody does it, then the others follow. So Pieter van der Hogeband was the first one on the 48 seconds, and then the rest of the world follows. And you see that in everything. In the past, 10.2 was good. Now, when somebody puts a new standard, the others follow. They try to be closer. So actually it has to do with will also. But it has also to do with thinking, what's the next step? That's what he said. What makes the difference? What I think that can make the difference, this looks now a little bit like real science. We are practical science, so it doesn't stay like this. But what we did now is we developed a system which contains LED lights all over the body, here in the middle, and then on the upper arm and the hand. And what we can do is we can follow these points in the water with a camera system, with a software, on 2 millimeters exact. And then we can see how does the swimmer move his arms. Because sometimes you give an advice and you say you have to move your arm a little bit to the side. But actually your eyes fool you, because when the water does this and you look through the water, you can't even see that difference. So what we do, we measure now the pattern of the pool, and we measure it with both arms. So you can compare both arms if they do the same things. And besides that, we can measure the speed. So if you know what somebody does and you know the speed, then you compare what he did with which speed is generated. That's, I think, one of our major tools to get more grip on the propulsion, because we don't know exactly how to do it. We just copy what the best of the world do. But we want to understand, and we don't want to start with an hypothesis how it should be done. We just start measuring, and then we search back what's the factor that determines that you go fast. That's another way of thinking. And I think all famous scientists do that, except Einstein, because Einstein thought of a theory, and then he proved the theory. But a lot of people just have to measure and then say this is the truth. We want to do that. We have now this big calibration system we have to put in the water, so it takes time. Then we have to put all these cameras. You see here the numbers of the cameras. So there are a lot of cameras in the water. And then we follow that swimmer. But I can imagine that all the coaches who are sitting here say, yeah, but that's not useful. And it's true. Because it takes us 2.5 hours to put this in the water. And then we have to beg that it goes well. And then we can do a measurement for Marcel. And Marcel, he looks very nice, but when he does his works, he wants absolutely that it works. And if not, he gets angry. And he's right, because he has to do the best performances. And we are too scared to use this system already with these athletes, so we do it now with youngsters, very youngsters from the club. And then we put them these lights on, we'll make them swim with that. And then we follow those lights in the water to see the pattern. But now the question will be, we need now 2 hours to do a total 3D analysis. And we have a famous coach, Martin Truijens, because he's also a doctor in human movement sciences. And when he performed this, it took him 2 weeks to do one stroke. So we already created that it normally takes 2 weeks, and now 2 hours. And I gave the assignment to our scientists, to our developers, it has to be half hour. I just did, and I said, half hour is the maximum time I want to spend on this, because the coach wants to do it, and at the end of the training he wants to feed back. So we are working on that now. So what we thought of, and that's coming now, in a year we will have it, we will do a double layered floor in the bottom of the pool. We put these cameras under, we will do that with Variopool, you know the company. And we will put those cameras calibrated like the system we have in the side, and then we can do this 3D analysis on the spot. And then we don't have to put the cameras anymore on the bottom, but it will be built in. And then Sander, again Sander, wrote this software. And it's semi-automated, so we can follow these lights in time, and we can do a 3D pattern analysis very fast. And that will help us to improve swimmers and know more about it. Because I don't know if it helps to do a faster recovery of the arm. I don't know if it helps the hand a little bit there or here. I don't know. And we want to know that. And we want to measure it. And based on measurements, we will give advice to the coaches if the work he did helps or doesn't help. And that doesn't mean that we are smarter than him. But he asks for the proper evaluation of what he did. That's what we are doing. Then, we are also working on this, vortex dynamics. We have a girl working with us. She works with the University of Technical Universities. She's in physics. And she does calculations to estimate the drag and compare that with top athletes and normal athletes to see what they do different and which vortexes we see. We have now working somebody for physiology, somebody for biomechanics, somebody for vortex dynamics. Next step will be talent recognition, will be one person. Then I work there to manage. We have one guy who does arranges all the analysis, and we have 40 interns working there every day. So that gives us a little bit power to do all the measurements we want. Then about money, because that was your question. How do you realize it? My budget is nothing. I have a budget of, a real budget that that's giving to me is 70,000 euro. And then we have working 4 people, secretary, myself, so 6, 7 people we have working for that money. And besides that, we create all these things. But we create these things because we give opportunities to companies to develop things in our center. And they leave the prototypes in our center. Second, what we do, we opened our center for others. Next week, Alexandra Herashimenia is coming to our center from Belarus, and we analyze her stars. She has to pay for it. We give the proper advice. She has to pay for it, but at least we can keep running our center. Besides that, about 400 children or 500 children per year come to our center, and we just make underwater captures for them. And they pay 30 euro per capture. It's 20,000 euro. It's not much, but we have 20,000 euro. So in total, we raised the budget till 200,000 euro. It's not much, but for our country it's a lot for innovation. Besides that, we involve the local government, that we can have an office, etc. Besides that, the Royal Dutch Swimming Association, the director, I'm very thankful for that. He realized that the best researchers we have 2 Sanders, one in Amsterdam, one in Eindhoven, now have a job, and they can stay, and he pays half of the salary, so that means half the center, half the Royal Dutch Swimming Association. And then we cooperate with universities, and they put PhDs, which we select, in the team. So we work with them in order to make those universities pay those people who are working in our center. And that also is something important, because you are all demanding people. There's none of you who is satisfied with a regular guy. So what we are searching for is these top talent PhDs which have social skills. Because when we go on a team, on a trip, 3 weeks in a hotel, and you are a disturbing person, then actually you're not there anymore because you are disturbing. You need to be social. You need to be able to work in a team. So what I do, I put a person there, I say this is the PhD we selected, and I truly ask to Marcel, what do you think of this person? Do you want to work with him? Do you like him? Do you think he can go on a camp? And as soon as the coaches say this guy or this girl is good for our team, then we introduce them as a PhD, and then later we test them on camps and on days if they fit, because if they don't fit, we don't want to work with them. That's important. Okay. Last sheet, this is a little bit the lessons we learned in our center. I think the experts have to be in the pool. A very important professor with a suit on, in his office, in the university, 10 kilometers from the pool, has not enough influence. I think he needs to be there, he needs to see, he has to share his expertise with the coach, etc. I think the office needs to be next to the water. So please don't create an office which is 500 meters from the pool where it's done, but create an office next to the pool that you can see the water and you can see the coaches and you can interact with them without making an appointment. Because Marcel has no time to make appointments. He hops in and he says, do you have time? And then we always say yes. That's actually how we work. Then the effectiveness in practice has to be realized. We don't like fundamental research. Fundamental research is for the university. The translation of fundamental research to practice, that's what we need. And they are the questions. They bring up the questions. They say what they need, and we will try to bring the answers on their questions, not on our questions. So we are obedient to them and not the other way around. Then, measurement systems have to be precise enough to give the right direction. That's important. Because when I ask a coach, how precise does it have to measure? Then he says, as precise as the atomic clock. But it is not necessary. If you measure times with your stopwatch and it is 2/10 different, then you can do it also with MyLabs, and it's also 2/10 wrong. It's as wrong as yours. So you don't have to measure anymore, and you have time for other things. That's how we think about it. It has to be precise enough to give the right directions to the swimmer. Then, the systems have to be simple and fast and a little bit Hufter-proof, because coaches are no technicians. They want to push one button, it has to work. Slowly we teach them, but it has to be simple, because if you have to be a technician to use it, they won't use it. So it has to be like an iPhone almost, and like a Samsung Galaxy. It goes, you don't have to learn that. My son of 7 years uses it already. That's what they need. Then, every day, improve the efficiency. That's important. All the workers in our office, including me, we have a big board there, and you have to write every day an improvement. Doesn't matter what. Can be about the coffee machine, can be about how we realize the analysis, how we everything. And it's all about effectiveness and efficiency. Effectiveness is for the outcome, and efficiency is how can we do the same outcome with less work. Because we want to do more with less work, so we need to be efficient. Yes, that's important. Analysis have to be done in training. I don't believe in going to a center once, do a measurement, and then 1 year or 2 years later come back. Then please do repetitive every 3 months. And if you are a team like the Netherlands, we do it daily. They don't ask anymore, are we going to analyze? We always analyze. And they can decide if they want to have the numbers. That's a different approach. It's not that the swimmers say, today I put my suit on, analysis. No. Marcel just says, can I have the numbers? And he gets the numbers. That's different. Analysis have to be done in reality. That's important, because we still make progression in that. What I see, for example, a start is always good because it's the beginning of a race. So you can do the analysis like you do it in a competition. But a turn is always after 50 meters swimming. They have to first swim 24.9 on the first 50 and then do a turn. But that's a total different turn than 50 meters before the wall, do a turn and swim back. So actually we are measuring and optimizing a situation which is not related to reality. So we are now saying to the coaches, please make them swim fast first and then do a turn and then we measure. Otherwise we say they have to resurface at 13 meters and actually in competition it should have been 11. So that's also a little bit strange that we practice never the turns in the real situation. Actually it's pretty strange that we always make pieces of the race. But that's my opinion. Then last thing, this, I put it down because I should have put it up, I think. The organization is as important as the experts. And that's really what I believe, because I'm very simple. I'm not a good human movement scientist. I'm not a good coach. I'm not a good swimmer. But one thing I can do, I can make people enthusiastic. And second, the organization to get, without putting money in, working people their asses off to do the best they can, that's needed. And that means if this is not done, this one can't work. Because Sander can't do these analysis on his own. He needs the students. No students, no analysis. No Chris, who is arranging this with the students. No outcome for Sander, no outcome for Marcel. So what I tried is to create something around them. Not money-based, but action-driven with result, with not much money inside because we don't have that. And then create some kind of dream with these people. Because everybody likes it when Ranomi wins a gold medal. Then all of a sudden we are all in the Netherlands, we are one, and we are doing the thing what we do in the Netherlands when we win. And that's because we all win when she wins. Actually it's humans. It's very strange, but it's something that we all have. And that's what we want to give to the students. And besides that, when Marcel walks in, 2 meters long, world champion, such a row of palmares, then actually the students are impressed already by the fact that they can work with him. And you have to use that. That's something we can transmit to them, and actually they work harder when they work for him. And they will work hard for you too. That's what we did. I don't know how much time I still have. 6 minutes. Okay. I want to show you something because this is all a nice talk. But this is what you came for, I think. I wouldn't come here to listen to only this story. This is Ranomi on the starting block. And we discovered some things which we think are useful. When you look at Ranomi when she's standing on the block, the first question of coaches is, does the center of gravity be behind or be up front? I can tell you it has to be a little bit backwards. Otherwise, you don't have the power delivered with the rear foot. Besides that, the question is, where do you have to put this foot? Does it have to be on that small block or above? Because let's say the rotation will be faster if you put the foot higher, but actually the force in the right direction is much better when you put it on that block. The question also is, what's the difference? Yesterday, a top-level athlete, I forgot his name, you know it, Jan. The guy who was in our table, he was in the Americans, he swam with Tom Yeager and with Matt Biondi, he was the third in the United States. And he asked me the question, what's the difference? Marcel said, the innovations make the difference. That thing is 2/10 of a second. Research on that, if you have the block or no block, it's 2/10. So actually somebody who swims 47.64 is as fast as Peter van der Hogeband, because 2/10 of a second is 1 with that thing. But then, what's important in this start? When you look at this, what you see is that she does two things immediately on the starting block. She pushes and she puts the knee down immediately in the right direction that she can push forward, not upward. What you often see is that people stand on the block and they lift their hip. And actually what you want is forward velocity. So that's why she lowers the knee and the angle stays around 90 degrees. You see that? Of the rear foot. Then the frontal foot. This angle is very important. That you leave the block with your knee in 90 degrees in that direction. And besides that, every volleyball coach, they know, is when they jump with their back also. They don't jump only with the legs. But what you often see in swimmers is that the upper body isn't used. So when you do a squat, you never squat like this, but you squat like that. So you have to raise your upper body to give more impulse to the body. Then, maybe for a lot of coaches it's not new. Actually, I know several scientists here who told the coaches for certain. But shortening the block time doesn't mean that you are faster. It means that you're faster from the block, but the time that you push on this block is as important as the speed going off the block. There are a lot of people who are slower from the block, but they come back on the water because they create more impulse because they push longer. That's important to know. Then, I will show you the other video. Here she comes in the water. And that's pretty important because how you leave the block on the block also determines how you enter the water at the end. Here it is. She doesn't have her hands together. Now she does. But what you see here is something important. And I want to share it with you because it's no secret. The speed direction is in that direction. A lot of people think they have to go in the forward direction. So what swimmers do, they have the speed line in this direction and then they change the position of the body. But when the speed direction is in that direction and you change your body position, then all of the body goes down. Actually, it's a break. In that part of the underwater phase, you go about 3.8 seconds, 3 meters per second or 3.5 meters per second. If you make a mistake there, you will be lost. You go slow. So, what we teach swimmers is to go a little bit deeper, follow the streamline, and then make the turn in the right direction. Here she does it not totally well because her feet in behind are going out of the streamline. She has to bend a little bit to keep them in the streamline, to not break too much. If you want to make a mistake, please do it around 5 meters because you will go 1.8 meters a second and the mistake is not so bad because the resistance It's much bigger when you go fast than when you go slow, of course, you know that. Okay. Then the first butterfly kick, we are looking on that too, if it has to be so deep, because I don't know if it should be so deep, because maybe it's frontal resistance and the outcome is less. Yes? Okay. This is what I wanted to show you. Last thing, and then we can do some questions. This is the numbers we generate when we do a start for one swimmer. So when we do a measurement, this is the outcome. You can imagine that if I look at it, for me it's like Chinese. It's difficult. I can't read it. But for what Sander does with it, he does correlation calculation. So he says, does this particular parameter say something about being fast at 10 meters? If so, he talks with the coach and with me, and we try to find what could be a solution to be faster, constantly. We do that weekly. We don't have any distance between the researcher and the coach anymore. We drink coffee together, we are together at work, we meet each other, we get angry with each other, but in one room, and then always the outcome is that we do something new or something better or improve something. That's what we created. Okay, this was my story. If you have any questions, you can do it now, I think. Yes? Okay. Are there any questions? Yes. Now, the question is very good. What we are looking for is the angle of leaving the block.
Okay. Is there an optimum entry or angle that you need to enter or leave the block or enter the water to be able to swim the optimum speed of race?
That's a very good question. What we do is first we look at one swimmer and we try to optimize this one swimmer. For a gnome, it has to be 20 degrees or 24 degrees, and for another one, 28 degrees, and for another one, 29 degrees, but it never comes above 30, let's say. And then you take the lower line, and you say, okay, who goes more flat into the water? There's maybe somebody who does 21 degrees. And then actually, if you do that, then you can give some kind of, let's say, information to the youngsters, because it has to be between 21 and 29. When you're above 30, you do wrong, and when you go under 21, it's wrong. And then, when they become better or older, we start pushing more energy in them, because just like in your country and in my country, we don't want to spend all our money on everybody. So what we do, for youngsters, we have this bandwidth we use. So for the start, for leaving the block, has to be between 21 and 30 degrees. And then we don't say anything, we just try to optimize him a little bit. By eye and with the video. And then later, when they are 16, 17, and they've shown that they can do in the European youth, they can do well, then we try to focus more, and then we start searching for this one subject, how he has to do different. And if Ranomi does 23, she's 1/10 faster than she does 24. So the difference is 1 degree. Can you imagine that you have to fall down? And to know when you have to push, that it has to be exactly that degree she can do. On demand. That's something special. These are the world-class athletes who can do that. Because there are a lot who can't. Yevgen Koroteshkin can. When he wants to change, André De Nino is in the audience, I think. He's the coach. He knows that this swimmer can do 6 starts, every 6 exactly the same. That's well trained. Otherwise, he can't do that. Yes? So the question to, is there an optimum? No. Everybody has his own optimum. Is there a general rule? Yes, between 21 and 30. Yes? Not a question.
Hi, Roald. My question's related to something a bit different, but related to your center. Do you do any DNA testing on any of the athletes?
No. Because we are not medical. Nobody is from the medicine part. So we have top support, which Dr. van der Hogeband is working. Our athletes go there to do at least look in the blood what's happening. But we are focused on physiology, biomechanics, vortex dynamics, and a little bit in psychology also.
Okay, because just from my personal experience, I used to play rugby, and I always found I was taking a lot longer to recover than my other teammates. So I went and had my DNA tested and found that I had a very slow detoxifying system. So I had to take supplementation and change my training
To
for that.
adapt better.
Yeah, so
Yes. But we don't do that yet. It doesn't mean that we are not going to start to do, because what we are constantly searching for is a meaningful things to use in practice.
thank
Yes.
you.
Couple of questions actually. Additional to the work you do on starts and turns, okay? What supplemental work do you do with the strength and conditioning coaches to implement the changes you want to do on the starts and the turns? And do you actually work on reaction drills outside the water to improve, you know, the acuity of your athletes, or picking up the signals or the
Yes.
starts and stuff
Yes.
like that?
Yeah, what we did in the beginning, because first you have to look where you can make the major difference. You know, the major difference was just in the technique, because they did so many things wrong. You can't imagine how big mistakes some people make who are world-class athletes and not just the regular. So that's the first thing we do. Then, now, we are more on the edge of, with Ranomi, for example, on the possibilities. I think she can't do much more. So then we start looking, what can we do? For example, light has influence on your reaction time. So we are experimenting on that. What can we do with light? What can we do with sound? What can we do with other drills? So we work on that very close with the coach, because the distance in our center between these research and these coaches is very small. So actually, sometimes people think I'm a coach, but I'm not. I'm just a manager. He's the coach. But we talk so much that we share ideas in the meanwhile. And then we search a company who can do something. For example, in light, we have a company in Eindhoven, because we are the light city, and we knew from papers that light can influence the reaction time. And then we start looking at that. But what you shouldn't do, because that's a little bit a mistake, you first have to fly to the moon to go to Mars. And what we need to do in swimming, we have to calm down a little, because this innovation is nothing compared to a CT scanner or an MRI scanner. We look straight to the body, into the body, what's going on. This is just a video system with a calibrated field. It's nothing. But in the practice, it means a major difference. So what we search for constantly, and he's the leader in that, what can make the difference today? That's why he did the presentation. How do we make the difference? But we are a part of creating that difference, and we want to make that difference. So he gives the question, and we give the answer, or a possible answer. Yes? More questions? Sir?
Right. Thanks for a nice presentation. You said just after the dive, the swimmer enters water in that angle, and you don't allow them to turn and go flat immediately. And there was something I was interested to know. So what happens? Because you'll be automatically facing down, and you're likely to go more down deep.
Yes.
So what, for example, I have to show my swimmers manually.
Yes. What we do is that if we think that the outcome is too deep, then we change something on the block, because the angle you leave the block actually predicts in which angle you will go into the water. So if you think that your swimmer shouldn't go so deep, and he goes out of the streamline too early, then you have to change something in the block that he goes flatter from the block. And that's the game of the coach, to find the optimum in that, you know? And you don't need all this very expensive equipment, because we all have an iPhone. We can click on that, and we can see a lot already by eye if you do it slow motion. Yes, so it can work. Is that an answer to your question? Okay. More questions?
Again, sorry about the English.
Okay.
Congratulations for your presentation. It's very good. And did you try to improve did you try to measure
the splash movement on the start?
Yeah, what we measure is when they dive, we measure the hole they create. So how big is the surface hole where they go through? And there is a correlation between the width of the hole in comparison to the speed. The speed decreased when you go through the water surface. So that's what we measure. And we looked also, do they have to do a kick when they come in, or do they just have to go? Until now, we think we just have to go, because the speed is so high that you can't give any extra propulsion anymore. Yes? More.
Thank you very much. The stats I've seen here are based on static water, and we all know the effect of hydrodynamics. Do you do the same for relays? Because when relays are running, the water is moving, and what are some of the points that you really pay attention to if you have to consider these two stats? All the examples I've seen is you're working with still water, and there are situations where you're going to be taking tests when the water is moving. Do you create that kind of situation where the water is moving and you do the same tests?
No, because what we want is that the measuring resembles the reality in a pool. So what we always see is these treadmill movies, you know, when you have a canal where the water is moved and you are still in the place. But it's different than the reality. So what I learned in school, actually every sports teacher learns that. When you do a test close to reality. So what we are always talking about, how can we do a test which resembles most how they do it in competition. That's actually what we do. That's why we do it just in still water, in a normal pool.
My point is that when the relays are running, the nature of the water is different from an individual event, like 50 meters freestyle.
Yes.
Because the situation there is that the water is still and quiet.
Yes. Yes.
When the relays are running, if you have to make relay changeovers, you realize that if the third swimmer is going
that the water is coming.
the water is not the same.
Yes.
Do you analyze that?
Yeah, they train, of course, next to the swimmers. So the water will be in movement, but not so much as when they do freestyle in a 25-meter pool with 8 big guys there. That's what we don't do. No.
Okay.
Could be an idea, actually.
Thank you.
Thank you. More questions?
Hi. Thank you for your presentation, firstly. I just wanted to ask, you alluded to earlier about the start of the fly kick off the dive as opposed to off the turn,
Yes.
and how you immediately starting the fly kick off the turn. Can you elaborate on that just a
Yeah,
little bit?
or you mean why with the turn you start kicking immediately and with the start not?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's a very simple answer actually, because when we tow a swimmer through the water with 4 meters per second, 1 meter under the water surface, and he kicks, then actually the resistance increases when he kicks. When the speed where we tow him with is 2.5 meters a second and he starts kicking, then the resistance decreases. That means when you do a turn, your speed will be about 2 meters a second when you come from the wall and you're immediately effective. And when you do a start, you come in the water with 4.5 meters a second, it decreases when you go to the water surface to 3.8 meters a second, and around the 5 meter point, you have the point where you have to start kicking because there you're effective. That's different per swimmer, because one swimmer goes better than the other. Yes?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Do you do any analysis from behind the swimmer at the starts? Because I've noticed even in a lot of elite swimmers, there's a lot of horizontal movement with the amount of effort they put into the push from the blocks. Does that have any effect on the actual time through the water, the speed through the water?
Now what we did now, I have to be totally honest with you. I tell you everything we know. What we did is actually it was by coincidence that we had this set up. Because Philips made that system, what I told you, which follows the swimmers. And there were holes and we put cameras in them. And we started. But Marcel already asked me several times, can we also look from above and from behind and from the and from a diagonal angle, because I want to see from more points the same thing. So what we are doing now is, and that's why I'm so happy with the 3D system, because then we can also capture the start with that. And I want to put a double layered floor and double layered walls to be able to put on every position in the pool on demand a camera. Because what we think is good now, we think next year is no good anymore. So when you make a double layered floor, you can take out a piece, put a new one in and put a camera there. That's what we're doing now. So it could be that this setup slowly changes in another direction, a better direction. But I want to be prepared on that, because if we fix the cameras in holes in the wall, yeah, then it's not changeable anymore. So I want to be more creative in that. So when somebody comes with a smart idea that I can say tomorrow, let's do it and try if it gives new usable information for the practice.
Thank you.
You're welcome. More questions? Okay.
Is there any research about muscles, white muscles and red muscles?
Yes, of course there's done a lot of research on is a sprinter has more white fibers and fast twitch fibers than a endurance swimmer. But what I always say is we have to do it with what you have. So we can do that for evaluation if for example the muscle changes. But if you want to change me, you have to do it what I have here. 1.80 meters, mean intelligence, shoe size 42, and not so much muscles. And that's what you have to work with. And tomorrow you have somebody like Marcel, 2.1 meters, a lot of muscles, a lot of testosterone, made by himself. Actually a deficient. He has some kind of, let's say, in our body it's changed. So what you see is that abnormal people can do abnormal things. And you have to do it with the one you have. Yes? So it counts for swimming, but it counts also in school. Some people have talent, so have less. So for me it's not interesting too much to do things which are not related to practice. What we are doing now, for example, with finding talents, there was a question yesterday or today about what do you do in talent recognition. We don't know so much. It's all based on luck. Large groups, some come up, we nurse them. Maybe we should do tests already. I'm a teacher, I was a sport teacher in school. Maybe you have to test all the children in the Netherlands, what they are capable of. And when you give them advice that they have more talent for track and field, then they have to go track and field. Because what you do well, you like also more. So I think it starts there, to find the talents of people. Yeah? But we don't know so much about it. We don't even know why Peter is so fast. He has a great technique, we think. Yes. Okay, more. Okay, then thank you very much for your attention.